Okay, hey guys, let's start painting stuff. I'm gonna put the keyboard away and let's just get started. Can you hear me okay? I think the microphone is a little bit off. Sorry. I just moved it right. Siri always starts when I least need it. I don't need it ever. So here are some pictures of cows, and I wanted to show what I have in my reference pictures over here that I have been using as I was frantically trying to sketch things this morning. But before I get to any of that, I just want to get to painting. And by the way, this palette is available in the membership downloads now. So I just uploaded it like literally seconds ago. I'm getting weird disconnects, but maybe that will just sort itself out. I'm gonna do a few quick block-ins and see how this goes. I could also open this whole thing on my phone to see that the stream is working properly. Okay, at least this is looking normal. Before I get into any colors, I just want to chat about the whole sketching process and how I block in elements like these, and how I ended up basically here with this whole cow thing. Did I press record yet? No. Okay. It's the one thing that I always forget. Also, with the live stream, there are a million things to kind of like set up, and I really should have a proper checklist, like somewhere to make sure that I have all the systems running properly before I start painting, because I often check that the live is working and then I forget to record, and then I don't have any materials to do YouTube videos. I'm getting a weird situation in the studio because I am not seeing the live stream update at all, but I opened the live stream on my phone and I see that is working properly, so I don't know what that whole thing is about. Is it just me, or is the sound cutting out? Maybe the microphone is... yeah, maybe the microphone is too close. Oh my god. Thanks for letting me know. Is it any better? Maybe the volume is too high. especially for this distance. Okay. Sound is fine for me. Okay. But thanks for letting me know. Like, honestly, sometimes it might be like one person's internet connection or whatever is happening with YouTube. But whatever the case, like, I have very limited opportunities to test the sound myself here if I'm making like any changes at all. Like if I'm moving the microphone even a little bit, it might completely break something. So you guys letting me know if the sound is working or not, like that's really how these streams get made and how any of this stuff works literally at all. So I really do appreciate it. I'm not just saying that. Many people think that just because I'm doing digital paintings that I'm somehow like some kind of like a tech god, that I know how all the software and hardware and everything works, and I basically know how to paint. That's it. The end of my skill set, basically. So whenever it comes to like other stuff, like the technical things or such, I'm just as much learning as everybody else. And of course, I have been doing live streams now for some time, so I'm not a complete beginner. However, there are so many things that affect both the stream quality and the sound, and I have been studying all of those elements. So at this point, I think the best that I can say is that it would take a really high level of like practical skill, not just knowledge, but also just practical live streaming experience to be able to know every single aspect at the same time. Like that's why I think checklists are important for this stuff, because even if you check few things, like they are all interconnected in many different ways. I think I could use cork. That could be fun. The sound is cutting out for me too, PU is saying. I'm gonna go into filters and check if the limiter settings are maybe let's just see if this helps. I'm gonna just turn the limiter off completely. And see if that does anything. For those of you who said that the sound is cutting off, I put the limiter filter off. It might be that it's so tight to the distance. Other than me and my ongoing live stream technical hassles, how is everybody out there doing? It's just lowering the volume of the music when you're speaking, which is intentional, I think. Yes, that is intentional. Because I don't want to be shouting and competing with the horns, basically. So strange to see that YouTube is playing this whole stream on my YouTube studio where I can monitor the entire live stream. It's playing it like 2 minutes too late, and if I put the YouTube on my phone, I can see it like way closer to real time. So the monitoring system from YouTube's end, like there's something up with it today. Too early to tell how the day is. Here it's 10 a.m. So for me it's a perfect, like literally perfect time to paint. I usually almost always work in the mornings when it comes to creative things, and later in the day I might do some sort of like business owner stuff, which is more technical, sending emails and doing all the paperwork and stuff, like that sort of technical stuff. Or if I have an editing element that needs a lot of work. For example, if I'm editing a video, there are these like 4-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour long video footage files that I need to go through and make sure that I cut out the pieces where I'm doing something like adjusting the colors or rearranging my layers or just like messing around in menus, something that is not that important. And I don't want to include any of that in the video unless it is a part of the whole point why that video exists. Because I don't want people to be watching a video tutorial and then think that like what is happening in the menus is somehow important for what I'm saying in the video or what the tutorial is about. So that's why I cut those elements out. But it takes a whole lot of time. Honestly, it takes so long. So I try to keep the focus of most of my videos to be on painting, because that's what most of my videos are about, unless it's a very like specific menu UI trick kind of thing. It's also not that satisfying to just watch someone to organize their layers or make sure that the clipping masks are merged down for 12 minutes. So I try to edit the YouTube videos so that I have all the important design choices in, and 20-hour painting or even a shorter one, there are plenty of those, and that just usually gives the video a little bit more visual interest when bigger things are happening than just like something in the menus that doesn't even affect the painting itself. I have several different sketches. Like I want to show them in the order that I made them. So this was one of the first sketches as I was looking at those reference pictures, and then I made this sketch, which is a little bit cleaner version, just like focusing on the geometry. And then I got a little bit more ambitious because I thought that like this is just very symmetrical, and I wanted to add a little bit of perspective to it. So I made this creature a little bit chunkier and added this perspective to it. But at this point, it's basically a collection of just like this one big barrel, and the head is made out of 2 squares and 1 circle. For most animals, you can just create 2 boxes and then focus on like what those 2 boxes are in size, and the bulk of the head is just a sphere. But the boxes have different shapes, and the difference in those shapes basically makes up all the different species characteristics. That's just like one way to sketch things, but I have noticed that for me it works. Because there are, of course, a million other details that you can learn as well. But those to me seem like the easiest way for my brain to comprehend how the shapes are constructed and how they are different from other species. And of course, like this is not gonna be any specific cow. It's I wanna have a little bit of like a fantasy element to it. A little bit. I know that some people might argue with the whole little bit part of this. Persistent Gamer is saying, question for you. What is the method of digital art you are doing called? I've been trying to find the art style name when an item starts out as a blurry image and gets sculpted into an object. I get this question a lot, like not just like in this specific technique, but like in all of the different styles that I do. Like people ask me like, what is this type of art called? I just make art. I just make illustrations the way that I feel like is the best way to express those ideas. It really doesn't matter what you call it. And of course, there's no like category of art that I am thinking about, that now I'm making this type of art. The answer that you are seeking does not exist. Like it doesn't. And I don't know why people put so much effort into this. Like, I'm not trying to be like mean in any way, persistent gamer, but like, I think you're looking for some kind of like a template that like there are a bunch of people who make art in a specific way, and I don't know what the reason for why you would be looking for this like one specific name, because I don't think it exists. I think that everybody makes art in their own way, and even I just like combine techniques all the time. I even like change styles and combine styles all the time, and I think it's better not to restrict yourself into something that like I'm making art in this one specific method, because art is a constant like evolution of discovery and experimentation, of figuring out what works for you, how you see things, and how you want to express things, like what it is that you want to highlight about life for the rest of us. That's why it requires constant learning. When you learn to be an artist, you learn to be a learner, basically. And confidence comes from just already like having a pretty clear set of values, like what elements are important in the art that you are making, and what kind of techniques are important to highlight those elements for us. For example, it would be easy to say that for somebody it is important for like the anatomical correctness of different species to be depicted accurately, that the way that they are existing on this planet. Like, that could be a value that a person holds for their art, and then they would prioritize that. But for me, the creature design is also a storytelling device, so it holds no value in my art. That's why, like, every time that you are developing your art, you are taking these like bits and pieces of what you know and bending them to tell the story that is important to you. Tanya is saying, I went out to a local cafe to work on my painting, but had to evacuate because, to my surprise, someone was allowed to vape inside of the cafe. Like, why? That is just bad cafe policy. Like, how is that different to just smoking? It just seems so rude to other people. If you're a vaping person, like, don't assume that like everybody is okay with you vaping in their presence. At least ask for a permission. Just have some like some common like human decency. Also, why are you vaping at all? Like, why wouldn't you just stop? Like, it makes no sense to me. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but like when I see somebody vaping, I'm just thinking that like they are incapable of like controlling their impulses to that level, and it just like sends this message about that person. Like, maybe it's not real, but like that's just what I instantly think about when I see somebody vaping. I can't imagine like dating somebody who is vaping. I'm just trying to get a feel for how the sunlight is kind of creating the mood and before I have the mood in the illustration, pretty much nothing else matters, because what's the point of doing it if I can't feel it, basically. I agree with you, but there has to be some sort of name for this specific method that you do that. It's just for us that have a certain style art of something they really want to focus on. Like, you can focus on painting. You can focus on painting like by using blocking for your sketching with color instead of with line art. That's it. That's the method. I don't know if you have seen the video that I made at some point called The Art Advice That Changed My Life, but I recommend watching that. Because like that whole message, it extends to everything else that I just said about art as well. But that's how I learned how to like sketch things without line art. But only in paintings where it makes sense. Like, for example, for this, for the geometric blocking, like I did find that like lines are the fastest way to get there. And I have like no principles that I need to do it in some specific way because I'm like beholden to some sort of a style or category of art. It's just like literally whatever method gets me to the end goal the fastest. That's it. That's what I'm doing. Everything else is just like excess weight that I will kick out of the car that I'm driving because they are slowing me from getting where I need to go. Vape flavors are the worst. Miaxi is saying, I bought your course on Gumroad and it's been great. Just working on my clouds now. Question, can those techniques be applied to traditional painting? Yes, but it depends on what medium you are working with. I think those techniques are most applicable to any paints that cover the other layers, such as, for example, I use those techniques for oil painting and gouache paintings, or poster colors more specifically. The poster colors that I use are a mix of gouache and more traditional poster colors, which dry super quickly. But the way that I paint with oils, because in the art school that I went to, we painted like pretty much one or more oil paintings every single day. It's all alla prima, so we would like block in usually with thinner color and then build up towards more oil and thicker layers. And with oils, I have inherited this thing from my art teachers that I firmly believe that if you can basically thin the paint by rubbing it into the pores of the canvas, then you are killing the color in the process. So I'm a firm believer that you should treat oil color like mass, that you are painting with mass when you're painting with oils, and avoid rubbing the paint too thinly, and especially so that you can see the texture of the canvas as you paint. Basically, don't be precious with the amount of paint that you are using. But with gouache, I don't really think that there is a downside to using thin layers. Especially if you have bright highlights, I think those are very handy to plan out in advance, because you can get to like much brighter highlights if you have a plan for where your brightest highlights are and kind of conserve those areas just for them. Because even the most expensive, thickest gouache colors, like they tend to, when they dry, they tend to still have a little bit more transparency to them than it seems in the beginning, when they are still wet. So if you have a bright highlight that you are applying over a darker color, like that darker color will end up kind of seeping through and dulling out those highlights. And especially when painting clouds or waterscapes, I recommend like having like a quick plan. You can do it on a Procreate like in a very quick fashion first, and then plan out where those highlights are going to be. And you can use your iPad almost like a light box as well for gouache paintings. I find that is sometimes super handy. So in my art course on Gumroad, the first part is about the fundamentals of like how to paint, how the tools work, and how to use the composition checklist. And then the second part is applying those techniques in a more advanced, more complicated subject matter, which is the building and all of those like small elements like objects and environment items, and just expanding that technique to apply it to as many subjects as possible. So in the second phase, kind of like all the skills from the first part are necessary. So I recommend doing them in that order. think I'm gonna have a cliff here so that it looks like this little doggy is like really peeking over the small edge of the stone. You know how when you're out walking with your dog and the dog is kind of pulling to like some completely illogical direction, like, no, we can't go there, there's like a huge ditch, just no thought about how they're getting to where they want to be going. I really like the way that kind of silhouette is being carved out there. I'm gonna pull out now that big wash brush and just to see what I'm doing, add a few big blotches here. Almost like a stand-in for the composition before doing the final version of it. Persistent gamer, I just want to ask, like, how it is that like you feel most comfortable, like when you're starting out a painting, like how it is that you feel that the paintings happen easily to you. I think this is a question that is often like forgotten about when it comes to just like basic art teaching. Is like, what method was easy for you? Rather than focusing on like how I do things, I think it's more important to ask yourself, like, when was the last time that I tried to learn something new and it just like happened pretty easily? I think that's how you recognize those sort of techniques and methods that work for you the best. I think this bear is a little bit too tall and creepy. Let's just like chunkify it a little bit. That's much better. The cool thing about cork brass is that I made it in cork, but that's not where the name comes from. The texture is actual cork wood. From my home here in my living room, I have a cork chair under which all of the Vivi's important things are. I've been trying this thing recently with Vivi, my dog, that all of the toys that she owns, they are in a basket on a floor, and I'm trying to teach her that like we will play with those toys when I decide that they can be played with, but instead she's just like dismantling the entire basket and bringing me all of her like ducks and pigs and rats to throw around, and it's going very slowly. I don't think I'm making much progress. I'm always trying to adjust her behavior when she does it, but yeah. even more than food, I think my dog just loves to like all kinds of activities, like especially when she has something that I'm chasing her, or at least I'm pretending to be chasing her for the thing that she has stolen, like a sock or something. The dog trainer told me that you should never chase your dog. It's not good behavior input. But she loves it so much that like I just threw that whole principle out of the window basically immediately. Yuko Art Therapy is asking an important question. Are you painting this purely from your imagination? Love your work, by the way. I think I threw away the cow reference pictures, but I did do like sketching, like a lot of like incredibly panic-induced sketching before this live stream when I did this. And I tried to learn as much cow anatomy as I could in 3 hours before the live stream started. I know that that's like nowhere near enough time, but I did give it my best shot. So I start by like having just a picture of a face of a cow from the front view like this, and then drawing the square blocks there, in addition to like what scale the circle is. Do I still have that sketch? So here we see that. So here's the circle, and here are the two squares. Can you see them? Like the nose square and the lower jaw square. Just like how those angles are different, like that kind of defines the animal. And then after I got like this done a few times, I wanna show you my first attempt. Because it's so bad. This is where I started. Remember, this was a lot of drawing. And this was the cleaned up version. And once that started to kind of like come to me more easily, then I made the whole thing from perspective, and that's this sketch. But it's still using the same things. It's just like now I gave it a little bit of like that side profile as well. Okay, what was I doing? Waterfall. Persistent Gamer is saying, for example, I wouldn't ask an anime character 3D artist on how I should draw a tree or a mountain. They wouldn't know where to start if they specialize in one specific area. But I think here again, like we get to the same point, like the question is wrong. Like in anime, like in anime specifically, not manga, but like anime, like drawings that are made for animation, there are like templates and rules for that specific thing, that so that like the entire team can get to the same end results. And in 3D modeling, there are just like optimal known ways on how to get 3D models done, especially if you need to hand it out to a texture artist later. Like they will need to be able to do the UV unwrapping, and if the way that you are doing 3D modeling is like somehow completely unique to you, then you're the only person who is qualified basically to do the UV unwrapping and texturing of that object, I realized that like people have moved on to PBR based textures now, so this is maybe like a bad example, but the rules about geometry are still pretty much the same, because things still need to be animated by hand, and for that you need clean edge loops and so on. So there are conventions on how those things are done, but in art you are the constructor of the entire method for the thing, and I recommend highly that you construct the entire technique around what's important. And that, I feel like it would be like unethical for me to even try to answer on your behalf. It wouldn't be something that I would respect any art teacher doing, honestly. Because it's taking away agency from the student. Too Strange saying, came here to say hi and big thanks, mate. For a long time behind, I've used your videos and lessons to improve my art, and I can say without them, I won't be now a full-time artist. Oh, that's cool. It's always cool to also see my students from concept art classes, like when they are hired to full-time positions and doing the art that they want to be doing. I think even if I don't stay in contact with them, if I just see them on LinkedIn and I notice that like, okay, they are working for this company now, like that always makes me just happy. I think art teaching is one of those things that like, it's so hard that unless you actually like it, it makes no sense to put that much effort into it. But to get back to what Yuko Art Therapy was saying about imagination, I thought that today I would just start painting and do whatever I feel like. But when I woke up, my creativity was just like, the category is cows, massive cows. Get to it. Thank you. And I was just like, okay, but I don't know how to draw cows. It's just like, that's the idea. And that's what you're now going to be doing. So whenever my creativity gives me these sort of ideas, I don't question it anymore. Because I never win these battles anyway. I might be just like wanting to say that it makes no sense for my current online presence and it wouldn't make for a good video next, or it doesn't make for a great YouTube thumbnail. But none of that matters. Like, my creativity, it does not care. Like, if it wants to paint cows, it just will. Like, I know that like if I try to rebel and make something completely else, I won't be happy with it until I just give in and do the damn cow anyway. So I know better than to start a battle that I know that I can't win. I don't know if that's relatable. I don't know how many of you out there it's like wake up and hear that you're assigned to do cows that day. It's probably I hope it's not a very common thing that happens to people. I'm not trying to complain. Like, I honestly do think that my creativity does know what is best for me. And even if at this moment, like, I don't get the full like mystery behind the art, at some point, sometimes even like weeks after the painting is done, I will eventually understand. And I always think that like I'm glad I did that painting. It would have like sucked if I had just kind of missed my window of opportunity to do the painting when it was good for me and when I needed it. There's always a reason. But it's funny when the reason is sometimes so obscure. Usually I don't do a lot of foliage during these live streams because it takes so much time, but I think this silhouette is pretty much working already. Also, when it comes to like anatomy stuff, I try not to stress too much because like with digital art specifically, pretty much anything can be fixed later. Like if it's not working and I'm making some mistakes that like in this situation where I know that other people are watching what I'm doing, it can seem like even more stressful. I know that I can still fix it later. It's fine. If somebody thinks that I'm bad at drawing something, like they're probably right, but I can get better. So it's only embarrassing and cringe if I give up. That's what I think. Zero Connection is saying, I'm going colorblind, currently learning value. Beyond that, do you have any tips? I think you're already doing all the right things, like learning values and learning to enjoy art in whatever ways that like you can still enjoy it. I think that's important. And values are important, so like whether you can see colors properly or not, I think learning values is always a good thing. When I was younger, I was always kind of like stressing about the art that I can't be making. Like I would look at art and drawings that other people are doing. Specifically like super clean line art. Like I used to feel like so depressed because I have incredibly shaky hands and I have done all the exercises. I have been on all kinds of like hard medications. Like nothing changes the fact that my hands are so shaky. I can't draw straight lines or clean lines whatsoever. So the type of art that I wanted to do when I was younger, like it just was never in the cards for me. And that used to cause me like a whole lot of like mental anguish. Because I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that like there's this like physical characteristic in the way that my hand works that I will never be able to overcome. And I just thought that like maybe I'm just not practicing enough. Like, what if I just do these sort of like line steadiness exercises, which are a real thing, and I know that they work for some people, but for me they did absolutely nothing because the normal shakiness of my hand, it's not skill related whatsoever. But as soon as I kind of learned that, okay, this is this type of art that I can make, it changed like my whole like relationship with art so much that I think that's the way that I really found the way that I work. Almost like I found the manual to the way that I work. And the weird thing is that like before that happened, my art was just like getting no traction online at all. Because I was trying to be somebody else. Somebody that I could never like be in a good way. I will never be one of those super clean art artists. So I was just a bad version of something that I wasn't getting any better at becoming. But when I started embracing this sort of like more sketchy, painterly look and seeing the world through volumes instead of lines, I think that the whole like stress around me and creating art, it kind of went away with that whole change at the same time. And on some level, I think that people can feel that in my art. And another big change happened when I quit working as a concept artist full time. And I started doing my own art online. And before that, I was always so concerned about like what all these producers and basically people in charge of the funding think about my art. And I'm sorry, but there's no like better way to put this, but like I was always somewhat afraid that like my art is too gay. Because it's too colorful, it's too cute, and it's too optimistic and romantic, and it's not a good fit for all these dark science fiction worlds that I was creating. And I might be right. I mean, honestly, like the whole video game industry, it is a pretty like sexist, homophobic, like all of that. Like it is in some way true. But I was carrying it with myself as well. And it was holding me back from like doing the kind of art that I enjoy doing. So enthusiasm is something that other people can see in your work. And when we are learning art, I don't think art teachers that often ask us like, how excited are we about the work that we are making? Like how true to us does it feel? Or if it feels easy. I think this is also like one of those forbidden things that you shouldn't say out loud. That this painting came easily to me, and then see it as a good thing. Because there's so much of this like conditioning to push towards like the discomfort, getting out of your comfort zone. And of course, like learning anything always creates a lot of this sort of like mental fatigue because absorbing information, it's not easy, and you kind of have to change fundamental aspects about yourself when you are learning art. That all takes effort. Then it can be such a like a weird mind shift when you try to internalize that like I also need to find the easy way of doing things, the way to accomplish these same end results that turn out good looking and don't completely burn me out in the process. It doesn't automatically, magically turn you into a better artist, but it gives you a path. Like, this choice in the technique, it leads into better end results. And every single second that you take away from accomplishing that end goal in other more time-intensive ways, like every one of those seconds can be used to improve the message and improve the painting in other ways. That's why it's so dangerous, and that's why I was so harsh about Persistent Gamer's question. That's why it's so dangerous to go into those sort of like, here's how you make art type of mindsets. Because then it's already incredibly difficult to come up with your own workflows and find the confidence that like those ways that you create art in the easiest way possible are the best ways to make it. That's already a challenge. But then when you add this sort of like weirdly learned guilt that art should be somehow difficult all the time, it just makes it even harder to notice those moments. And it can sometimes be in a very like deceptive small choices, because when art is easy, like it's much harder to notice that. But for example, we were just having this discussion in the Discord channel in the membership that, for example, when foreshortening is difficult, it's very easy to notice when you can't draw something that you are trying to draw. Like, that is super easy. But when things happen effortlessly, like, those are the notes that we should be making for ourselves to guide our style into finding our way of working. But when those moments happen, like, it's almost like you didn't notice that it even happened in the process, because by design, it was effortless. You didn't have to stop and ponder how to get there. But when you just make enough art, you will have enough of those experiences when you do notice that, like, oh, this was actually like surprisingly easy. Maybe I should do this again. And the answer is, of course, yes. I'm really liking this sort of like, this color, this gray. It's like the perfect tone of gray for this. I painted on the wrong layer, of course. Damn it. It wouldn't be a live stream if I didn't paint on the wrong layer. The lines that I drew on the face, like, they are the lines because I was watching at cow skulls, and the points where the skull is closest to the skin. Do cows have skin? No. It's weird to talk about like cow leather. Sorry, I'm so quiet. I'm so focused on looking at the pictures of cows on my phone. This is basically how I draw when I bring in the contrast of whatever is the lightest area. That's why it's so easy for me to start with like dark bases with digital paints. Also with oil paints, I always start with darker tones. Fully like emo hair. I want this to be super chunky. Maybe here, where the bone ends. The thing with this part is that like I don't want to take away from the readability of the rest of the anatomy, so I'm trying to follow the shapes. I'm trying to follow my own advice from my previous video about just like focusing on the shadow edge areas so that I can get as much of this done in the live stream so I don't end up just rendering texture endlessly here. Because that would be probably very boring for all of you. I'm trying to add a lighten layer here. It's just like a blotch of color. And try to sink in that light hue into these whites. So I'm turning this into lighten or lighter color. Adjusting the gradient a little bit. And then I'm gonna add a whole lot of saturation to this. Because it's also going inside those individual hair fibers and bringing out all of that saturation. And then adding a mask, black color, and painting away the parts that I don't need. Okay. I think it's adding that kind of like here. Look at this moment to the painting, which is important. I think I might have gone a little bit overboard with the ears. But it's just the way that I see my dog's ears, like they are massive. Vivi is sleeping in one of her 3 dog beds right here. Even if it's sometimes just as easy to paint something on the same layer, if you have the option of like adding an extra layer, it always gives, at least it gives me an opportunity to like try different hues of the same color to see it's just like what works best. At least my guess for like what color could work the best. The first version is like very rarely the one that I end up going with. Pretty happy with that color though. It seems to work. But usually when something that just doesn't work, just do this. I go into the hue and saturation and then just kind of like browse through what options do I have. And that usually provides somewhat better results. I thought that for this story, it wouldn't make sense that like the backpack that this bear is usually wearing is much larger because it requires like proper camping gear. At least some kind of a mattress thing for sleeping. I think the best stories for pretty much any illustration always come from these practical elements that you think about, like one practical element, like how people are able to cross the distances in your environments, or what kind of relationship they have. Whenever you start thinking about those things, it's usually pretty easy to kind of just extrapolate those elements into more and more things, and then suddenly you have a whole lot of answers to how to construct the rest of the illustration. I think I'm gonna need to hit some more light into this area as well, kind of like carve out these other story elements, because they are not less important. They're almost just as important. I think this is just carving out that mood of the story, like little by little. Trying to work really fast because I know that I have so many things that I want to be explaining basically in the painting. I think the story is like interesting. I want to know why they are here. Is the cow happy that it's getting visitors? So many questions. And I think those are interesting questions. That's why I'm happy about them. I think when it comes to concept art, it's really easy to just make something strange and interesting, but to make interesting questions, I think that's always the end goal, and that's much harder than to make just something look interesting or pretty. I think pretty is like the lowest bar to clear when it comes to concept art. Sorry, I'm checking the chat. My morning started with some footballs characters lifting weights, pre-workout product. I am colorblind. Can't believe I said I'm going. Do what works for you. No set rules. Karl Kopinski usually starts drawing with a messy scribble. End product looks amazing. Yeah, like basically whatever works. Persistent gamer, like never like apologize for asking question. I was just worried that like I wanted to answer the question in a respectful way. I know that the point is not in any way to like harass me or annoy me or diminish my or anyone else's art in any way, but this isn't just like a question that you have, so I wanted to answer that same question many times because I do think that it can be easy trap to fall into, not just for you. Like, I'm not trying to like single you out in any way, but trust me, you're not the only one looking for this sort of like what is the name of like that type of art making. Like, just make art basically, and you're already on the right track because like you have recognized that like this one way of making art interests you and you want to try it, then that's what you should do. Like, that's already like much further ahead than many people are, like when they just don't even know where to start. I'm not saying that the blocking in just big volumes of shapes with blobs of color and then sculpting them into different forms is going to work for you. I don't know that. I don't know you, and I can't see you working on these things, so I can't like give you feedback on if it's going to work for you. But I do know that you're interested in it, so that's something that you should try. And I think you already recognize that like it could lead into a way of working that matches with the way that you see things. I just don't want you to stop there unless it doesn't work out. I want you to keep asking yourself that question and keep being curious. I know that this is a weird track, but I love this. It's called Abandoned Shopping Mall. I'm always looking for a reason to include this track in my videos, but I haven't found one. I think the difference between art teaching and kind of like looking for up information on your own is that we art teachers, like, we need to go through a lot of like trial and error to see how people learn things and where they might end up wasting a lot of time. And it basically doesn't matter how long you are studying art or doing art exercises and practices. If that attention is directed towards the wrong things. So that's why some art teachers are good and some bad. Like, I was a really bad art teacher when I started, and I had just basically no experience or knowledge in what kind of methods work for other people on how to learn art. Basically, I started like most art teachers start by just focusing on what worked for me, and that's the wrong way. That's the wrong approach. Because everybody learns in a completely different way. And then you can only learn from those sort of mistakes and then slowly adjust your teaching methods so that it's actually beneficial for other people. So when people are learning art on their own, they run into problems and then they Google how to do this, or give me a tutorial on how to do these sorts of paintings. And in that moment, people are trying to kind of be their own art teachers. And I think that's where the danger of self-studies can sometimes be. As much as I think that everybody like absolutely can learn everything on their own, but in those moments there's a huge like potential for like focusing on the wrong thing and think that like this one element is right now important for me to learn and incorporate into my art. But when if you have few art teachers that can look at your art and say that if you want to get here, you need to kind of like do these exercises first, that's how you're able to do this end goal that you are going for much easier, but it might not seem apparent to you at the moment. Where my big challenge with this entire YouTube challenge is that I want to provide like real like art educational materials in YouTube video formats, and there's only a handful of like topics that are kind of like sexy to click on to generate like clickable thumbnails and video names, because a lot of the things that are important for learning art are not those elements that people know to search for, even if it's something that they need for the goal that they are going for. I have made videos on analogous color harmony, how to paint gray and how to paint white recently. I think all of those topics are super important, like fundamental topics, but I think all of them are also videos that have done quite badly on YouTube algorithm, just because like people don't search for those things. And as a content creator, you kind of have to sometimes battle with this like art teacher persona that like you are you just creating content that needs clicks and views, or are you providing a library of content that people can use to improve their art skills? And sometimes those two just don't align, and I have made the conscious choice that like to me that just sometimes has to be fine. It is what it is. sometimes I will just like acknowledge, even before making the video, that like people will not be searching for this, and it's fine. But I'm happy when it's something that I can offer, so that like when there's, for example, a question that like I'm having difficulties with this, and then I see their art. For example, on the Discord, I very often like link to specific videos when people are looking for resources, and I'm now in a position where I have done so many videos, both on this public art channel and also on the membership. Membership has a lot more like technical art theory tutorials as well, where I can just point out like, watch this thing and do this assignment. In those moments, I'm always like super happy that I'm glad that I had this resource already done, so that I can offer it to this person, like not just to say that like this is an important question and I will work 2 weeks on a video tutorial on this, but I can immediately point them to a thing that like this already exists. Do this assignment or watch this live stream where the assignment is being done, and do it yourself at the same time. I think those moments are super rewarding for me. I should add a leash. Some kind of a reason why the dog is pulling and not getting to where it's going. I would never put a collar on a dog. Like, of course, put a proper harness on your dog. You wouldn't like somebody to tug you from a loop on your throat either, especially if you're a dog that has a very long, frail neck. I like that the cow is just paying no attention to these people that have come all this way to see what the cow is doing. It's just completely minding its own business, staying moisturized, thriving. I feel like the ears are kind of like flopping in two different directions, so I might need to make it as its own separate thing to make sure that they are pointed into some one direction at least. I'm just gonna do like one and completely ignore the other for now, and then just make the other one match whatever this is. Okay, now we need some very chunky horns. Check the chat. By the way, I have to say that like after the last live stream that I did where I was doing the graphic illustration thing, the capybara, my voice was completely gone. I thought that I was getting sick, but it was just me talking in this live stream all the time. Squiggle. I don't know if that name even has like any readable letters. Is saying, I always love seeing art live streams and seeing beautiful art unfold, cause sometimes I forget to be patient in my own process. Yeah, I think that's very common, that people just like, when they start making art, they are already expecting to like see what it looks like in the end. And sometimes it can be a multiple day process, honestly. And once you get the mood in there, I think it's important to focus on that first, because then it's much easier to just like already enjoy even the unfinishedness of it, because then you can just like exist in that space and in that mood, and that's much more fun than work on a sketch and then like think that like this doesn't make any sense yet, and you need that kind of reason to push through the hard part. So I recommend making a beeline for the mood first, and then all of those like other technical elements like anatomy and stuff, like that is stuff that you can and will figure out. It's not going to be the bottleneck of whatever it is that you are doing. But find that reason, like why the painting is going to be fun to work on first, and then the rest is like much easier to have that patience for the process. I also recommend like keeping something that you know that is easy for you and that you enjoy, and it's not going to change the entire composition. Like keep one of those elements that you think is the best part about the painting and keep that to yourself and hold it like a carrot. Once everything else is done, then I get to do my fun part. I'm doing that now as well. Like the color editing phase for me is always the most fun, and that's why I try to hold off on even trying what color editing is going to do to the end process, because it's not going to change the illustration in any significant way. It's just going to push the colors, and they're already like basically there at that point. So I'm not gonna be making any important decisions when I'm doing color editing. I'm just using the existing colors and getting the most out of them. If you have any like elements in a painting that you are a big fan of, that like you enjoy painting, like let people know in the chat, because those could be someone else's favorites as well, and this is could be a way that you can make the process a little bit easier for somebody else, whether it's like highlights or blocking in foliage elements or doing the final textures, whatever it might be. If you have an element that you enjoy doing, I think I would be interested to know that as well. Oh, by the way, the top layer here is like, these are all the downloads currently in the membership that we have going on at the moment. So make sure that you download these before the download folder is gone. That's why I had that on a separate layer, so I'm gonna delete that right now. For example, the pastel pencil brush that I was talking about in my previous video, that is also in the membership downloads, so don't miss it. Uh, is the brush pack from Gumroad Best of Angry Mikko the one he's using right now? Yes, Cork is in Best of Angry Mikko. And Best of Angry Mikko brushes, they are not a best of like brushes that are available online that are made by me. But Best of Angry Mikko means that like these are brushes that I have done in this YouTube membership, and I often do downloads for members. And sometimes those brushes can be like experimental or fun. Like those are the ones that I don't need to commit to for a really long time. So that's why I like to just like make brushes that are fun to use. And Best of Angry Mikko brushes are brushes created in the membership that ended up being like the brushes that I use on a daily basis. That ended up like as ones that I find the most useful, and that whole paintings can be painted with them. And that is what that name means. Those brushes are not available in any other brush sets. I'm gonna turn off that sort of like big sketch. This one. Getting a bit distracting. After a certain point, like my sketches are so loose and messy anyway that they kind of lose the point why they even exist. After a certain amount of time, the painting itself like has more information on what it needs than my sketch. I also have this feeling that I like to be generating ideas, like even when I'm painting, I'm always kind of on the lookout for like any story opportunities in the process. So when I'm doing a sketch, it's usually such a quick moment that I haven't fully processed like the entire possibilities of a story. So I like to have that sort of freedom when I'm doing the painting, to give myself the opportunity to discover what the painting is even about when I'm working on it. Am I doing on time? How long has this live stream been going on for? 2 hours? Well, I think I'm like getting to some kind of mood and idea, so I'm not too worried. I can already tell that this leg is something that I'm going to be just like painting over and over again later, because just this one single leg needs to communicate so much. It needs to look like one of these legs in the first place, and then it needs to communicate the distance and basically the entire scale of the character with this just like one element that is far off in the distance. Should we have like a small tail? Just looking for the vibes. I'm kind of already horrified, like, how long, like, texturing this specific rock is going to take. But I'm just putting that problem, like, out of my mind. It's something that I'm actively trying not to even think about, because I'm sure that it will take way longer than I would be okay with. One thing that I'm always doing with like small detail elements is these plants in the foreground. They are kind of like a repetition of that cow tail shape. And that's something that I often think about with my small details, is that how can I tie the shape language into something that is more important, that is already in the illustration. So that when people look at your details, the details can help guide to the important elements of the scene and not steal the attention, because the details are by design something that people will be looking at, and you want to create them in a way that they are not too distracting. It's a small trick, but it's a handy thing to have in your back pocket when you are painting and you want to have some kind of a guideline for what it is that you are exactly doing. Because I've also been in situations where I've gotten to the point where the blockout is working and the mood is there, and I'm starting to add details, but I don't know what details to add. Then just thinking about this question, what element could be repeating the theme in some form? That is usually very helpful to get through those sort of dead-end moments. And it usually results in details that are like way more meaningful to the end result of your whole illustration idea, rather than just being details for details' sake. These flowers need a lot of water, so that's why I'm placing them right next to the shore, or here where the water spray is constantly watering them. And here in the foreground I have the explanation versions, basically the elements that are closest to the camera. Here I'm explaining the shape, and with these dots further away, I am just using this explanation like as a way to cheat that the detail that you are seeing in the foreground, that is being repeated in the background, rather than going into every single flower and using like 1 pixel brush to get the same level of detail. That's not necessary, and it's actually more harmful than good. I think the left side also needs a little bit of sunlight to kind of catch the entire composition. So there's this invisible line that is implied light that is coming from here. And it's kind of like leading us to the subject, but also on this bank over here. And to serve the composition so that the eye doesn't fly out of the illustration here, notice that I'm also directing the attention downwards on the same bank. So I need to create kind of like a book stopper that catches the light and directs the attention back into my subject. And that's what I can use this lower contrast light for. A persistent gamer was a night shift. Wow. Thank you for tuning in so late. Lots of love from India. Lots of love back. Tanya is saying, new favorite element or technique for me is copy canvas or layers, change blend mode or color edit, mask out and paint back in parts. Yeah, I love that too. I mean, especially when like adding hue variety. I don't know if you are in the mailing list, but I just recently sent out this like mini tutorial that I use in a lot of my paintings, where I am doing exactly that, doing small color change and then painting in those elements on a black layer mask. That way you don't have to repaint the entire value logic and texture or whatever you're doing, and that's how you can get that sort of like color variation that gives a lot of life and interest to your art. Whenever I see tutorials on like how to get that sort of like Ghibli look to your paintings, I think that's the step that is always missing from those tutorials, is that they are just copying the colors that they see in the background paintings and completely forget that like that color is incredibly deep and rich, and since it's done with poster colors, it's already like creating all of these like subtle variations on top of each other. And if you just color pick the end result, you are not copying the technique, which is the important part, and that includes that richness of color. And when any surface is done, like, I highly recommend you kind of like question like the doneness of something that is just like one single color. Even having just a small variation of color throughout the painting can create that sort of like extra movement to the color and direct the attention to what is important in your painting. What is the story? And also note that the opposite is just as true as well. Like, what is the painting not about? That's also one of those things where there's a huge like learning gap when you're looking for like online art tutorials. Everybody is teaching you to paint pretty glittery, sparkly things, but when you're learning art, it's just as important to learn how to control boring, where you need the boring areas, and what the function of those boring areas are. That's why so many people, when they start learning art on their own, like their first paintings are usually like way overblown with saturation, details are everywhere. It's just like somebody opened a pack of confetti over the canvas, and they don't understand that like just because you think that something looks pretty, adding more of that pretty everywhere is kind of defeating the purpose. It's like baking with only sugar as your only ingredient. Boring elements in a painting can work just as effectively as interesting, eye-catching elements. They underline what's important, and without them, that focus doesn't happen. Especially the corners of your painting, it's important to know how to paint boring things, or in a boring way. Selena is saying, I love the eyes from cows. They look like they're staring into your soul and they are so lovely. I feel like whenever I look at cows, they seem like they are way more chill than I will ever be. So if I could have like a fraction of that sort of easy attitude that cows have, I think I would be much happier as a person. So that whole light area is acting like an arrow, like a diagonal arrow, bringing the attention back into the cow. I think the waterfall needs also some highlights from the sky, not just highlights from the sun. Just using the same principles as in my water tutorial, so where the water is moving super fast, I'm kind of streaking it up into these vertical lines, and then when the air resistance is hitting it, I'm letting the lines turn into more organic forms. I'm also going to duplicate this layer of highlights and then take out the smudge tool and blur them individually in parts, especially at the lower part where it's kind of breaking these highlights into a soft spray. This is the first time that I'm using a different brush than the cork brush. This is the big wash, and I'm using the texture of it just for the spray areas of these highlights. I think some really chunky big horns could be fun with this as well. And I'm just doing this layer that I'm adding a little bit of redness to these ears. I don't really have that color elsewhere, so it's a very easy way to bring attention to that one area. I want the thick part to have a little bit more texture to kind of communicate how massive it is. You could probably like go and sit on these horns. I don't recommend it, but it seems like a very chill cow creature. Probably wouldn't get mad. But still, you wanna be respectful. Looking like an intense situation, or maybe that's just me projecting how intense my dog Vivi is. Vivi is a herding dog for herding cows specifically, so maybe that's where I'm getting this idea from. Kind of the deep repressed instincts waking up when the attention calls for it. I don't think this cow would appreciate to be herded anywhere from this like chill spa area that it's hiding in. I love organ sounds. Every summer I go to this organ marathon. What is that weird blobby area that I have on somewhere? This one? Okay. I go into this organ marathon event that is in a church, and I listen to the best organ players in Finland play their favorite organ pieces, and this always happens in the middle of the night. That's always the last thing that I do, and I do mean like 12, 1 a.m. kind of thing. And part of this tradition is that, like, because it's the end of my Night of the Arts walk, after visiting all the exhibitions and art events, that there are also these nuns that are selling waffles or pancakes outside, and they've been doing this every year. So I always go there and I eat pancakes made by nuns and listen to organ music. And it's always by myself because nobody has the patience to go through this entire thing with me. I did drag my boyfriend to the event, I think last year. Thank you, Lala, for the tip. I should have like a tip jar. Somehow it'd be cool to visually represent that. I've been thinking that like I might need to do like some graphics for the YouTube channel in the near future, because I definitely think that I should be applying a look to them. But at the same time, I want to do some experiments with thumbnails and then just like see what works and kind of play around with the options that I have. But it feels very intimidating to commit to anything. Also, I'm such a creative person that I kind of want to redesign everything all the time. So committing to just like one thing seems like counterintuitive to that. I'm just baking some rock textures by doing this. Giving it kind of a direction, then expanding it over everything. Then adding a black layer mask. And then with white, painting in those textures. Just to give this entire area a little bit more grit, but keeping within that same color space. Artist here, Autumn May, is saying, I wouldn't have found such talented channel like yours if I didn't scroll through art tutorials. Well, I'm so glad you found this place. Thank you so much for the lessons. Well, thank you for being here. I love looking at my old art when I first started 2 years later now and being able to see where I went wrong and what I could do now to improve on it. It shows I'm learning, Persistent Gamer is saying. Yes, also Persistent Gamer, with that same thing, like regarding what I said earlier about art teaching, the advice that you would probably give your old self that was doing those things that you now notice that you have improved on, it wasn't probably what you were looking for. So that's exactly what I mean about the kind of trickiness on learning art on your own, and then like having this sort of like distance of space from like being the artist and like being the guide when somebody is in the learning process. So I think that's the dilemma that I'm always dealing with when I'm thinking about what tutorials to make. Because sometimes a topic can be important, but there's just like no YouTube sexy way of doing it. Now I'm kind of getting more into texturing, and probably I should not be doing this in a live stream. This is stuff that anybody can do with just enough time, so I'm gonna leave that stone stuff there. But what other things do I need? I think this whole patch over here, I think it could use a little bit of grass. If I'm honest, like not for any like composition reason, I just think that it would look kind of more cozy. But is this also texturing? I think this is also texturing. Turn off the line art. So just to recap, this is where I started with my cow skills this morning when I woke up, and this is where I ended up. So I'm pretty happy with this whole story arc that I have gone through before this live stream. I'm gonna quickly flip this around. Persistent Gamer just became a Angry Mob member. I hope that we will see you on Discord. Where was the last time that I posted the Discord invite link? It's in the membership community posts. So in one of those. Also note that the downloads are time sensitive. So the download folders always automatically expire. So make sure that you get the downloads from the latest link. That's always the one that is available. The other ones, like, they automatically usually delete after 30 days. So in one of those recent community posts, there's a Discord link. So I hope that we see you on the Discord channel, and remember to link your YouTube channel to your Discord so you can stay there. And if you have any art, like, post your art on art channels. There's also an art assignment currently that we have going on, and I will be doing more live streams on that later as well. Yeah, I think that's all of the stuff. I think there's this composition need. I'm pretty happy with the way that cow looks, even like after this flipping around thing. But I think there's a need for more of these sort of like diagonal elements over here. Now the cow looks somehow like angry. I don't like that. Maybe it's about the way that this leaf is designed. I think it's fine. The other ear could just be further away a little bit. I hope I still have them on separate layer. Yes. So I'm just going to squeeze this in a little bit. It's not a big difference, but at least they're not exact copies anymore. Where was I making those changes? Here. So here I was thinking that, like, having more of these diagonal lines kind of lead us into the painting. I think those would be important for the composition. So when I'm gonna be doing texturing, that's something that I will be focusing on. Should I try some cloud things? Is that even important? I don't think it is. No, I think I'm gonna be happy with this being just the way it is. See, I'm now doing everything on a single layer because, like, these are all elements that I can separate easily later. And of course, like, this really dark line, I'm going to edit that away, maybe with lighten. I'm just gonna quickly slap in a gradient there. This can be really dark because the colors that I'm going after are also very dark. for storytelling purposes, like this orientation makes no sense. So if we are doing a story that we are discovering something new and foreign and something greater than us, you put those things on the left and you come from the right, because that's where the home of your character is. This I'm gonna pull behind the rock to carve out the silhouette a little bit more. Give it a small blur. And then just warp it in place. I want to make sure that these are actually like color shifted towards the light hue. So I'm gonna go into curves and make sure that my blues are cranked down. Reds up a little bit and greens down as well. I'm sorry if this has been a super long stream. I don't know if I'm sorry, honestly. It's just my creativity decided that the thing that we are going to be doing in this live stream is going to be this insanely ambitious element with like epic characters, like poses and anatomy and environment and lighting and all of these things. It's just what it is. Like, these are... I'm not gonna pretend that I have control over this, so it makes no sense for me to apologize for it. I'm sorry if you thought that this would be just like a quick, fun painting, but it turned out into this how epic thing. When the rays are not sharp enough, you can always go in and like erase individual parts where you think that the ray presence is more important. Like, for example, these sort of like edges, a cliff. Just do like simple, hard, full opacity eraser brush strokes. And then you can go into motion blur and then blur them in. Just gives a little bit more of those individual streaks. I'm gonna quickly read what's happening in the chat. This cow seems to be thinking, how did I get here? Yes. Kura is saying, sadly, I'm not an artist. I love watching your videos, but they are like magic to me. When I see the beginning and what color you are using and what it looks like in the end, I have no clue how that works. Well, trust me, it's all based on just like a very simple rule sets. Here, in this type of painting, this is not what I would recommend that anybody start out with. Like, there are very simple paintings that I would recommend as your first ones, and then gradually increase the difficulty to include more elements of color and just like different drawing elements. Like, it's a slow process. But there is a very simple rule set behind every one of these steps. And as boring as this might sound to somebody new to art, creativity is magic. It's like actual real magic. But the process of creating art, it's based on a very simple rule set that has been taught to me, and it's teachable and it is learnable by absolutely everybody. An artist is just somebody who identifies as an artist and who is like committed to learning and creating the things that their imagination conjures up. Everybody has great ideas in them. It's just about getting them out of your head. And for example, when I'm doing a composition, it's a very simple checklist that I'm going through over and over again. It's like math. Is it working or is it not? With every element of the checklist, like it's a binary thing. It's not magic. It is just learned skills. What program are you using? Procreate. Have you used Krita at all? White Shade is asking. Yes, I have used Krita. Krita is the same as Procreate. Whatever you prefer using, like they're the same program. If you like Clip Studio Paint, same program. I don't recommend Photoshop, which I use for creating thumbnails of my videos, because it's the same program and it's insanely expensive. It's not better, like, and it wasn't meant for digital painting. So don't use one that is like super expensive. Use one that works for you. They're all the same. When using paper, I used to always rotate the page when drawing, but never thought to rotate the digital page when doing digital art. For me, it's impossible to get certain curves, like even remotely smooth, if I'm not rotating the canvas all the time. So sorry if somebody got motion sickness out of that, but it's like literally essential for me to get anything done. I also really like your more abstract paintings. I love the colors and like to find those textures and brushstrokes. Yes. I think I want to do more of those art snack sessions where I'm just doing like quick paintings, and I think in those I get to have more fun with textures as well. You hit the nail on the head for that majestic cow feeling when you were talking about it earlier. Amazing turnout, thank you. Yeah. I mean, like, imagine waking up and having this type of cow like come to you first thing in the morning. It's intimidating. I was just like, I can't do that. I can't paint that, but I'm really happy with the way that it looks. Have you had issues with consistency and keeping up with studying, learning, so that it isn't dependent on motivation? Yeah, I don't trust on motivation. Motivation is total garbage. It's never there when you actually need it, so you need to have a creative practice. My creative practice is after my morning coffee and walking Vivi, I come here and I start painting. Whether I have motivation to do so has nothing to do with it. Whether creativity decides to show up and pitch in with an idea has nothing to do with it either, because my creativity will show up whenever they please. I can't control that, but I can control like being physically here and doing the work. So that's why I have a very strict creative practice of like how I schedule my day and when I'm doing the painting. I think that's super important. Are you using an iPad Pro 13 inches? No, I can't afford to buy the latest one. I'm using M1 still. Also, I wish that they had like added like few more inches to make it like worth all that money. It seems really expensive for basically just like 1/10 of an inch that they added. The painting looks blurry. Okay. Hello. Damn, Mikko is literally a magician. Do you have any advice for painting with unorthodox colors as highlights and shadows, like purples and pinks and blues and such, example, instead of natural colors, if you know what I mean? Yes. I recommend learning colors, especially ones that you are uncomfortable using at the moment. I recommend doing the assignment in the color tutorial that I did about color, where the whole painting is done with just greens, basically selecting a very thin slice of the color wheel and doing a whole painting with that. And once you learn how to use the entire depth and all the different options of that color range, then only then add a little bit more. But I recommend like doing those studies in the beginning quite a lot before you get to a stage where you are comfortable. That's how I learned, for example, how to use purple by just doing a lot of like very purple paintings, because when it's the only option that you have in your tool bag of colors, then you really quickly learn how to use it in a more like mature way. Watching you while doing my headache human anatomy assignment. Okay. In India we will bath with this cow. That's a good point. Like, one thing that I was considering that I might still do is that in India sometimes cows have these like massive bells. I would be just like crossing the street in India and the whole traffic would stop because a cow would be crossing the street. And sometimes cows have these like massive bells, and even sometimes they have these like very ornate things that the bell is held onto, like with all kinds of like decorations. I think a bell could be like super fun. But this could be an opportunity for me to kind of combine different cultures and find some like interesting bell for the cow. Okay, thank you everybody for showing up to this live stream. Oh, 3 hours. Well, I think I got a lot done in 3 hours. I should turn off this thing. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Bye.